Okay, welcome to lesson 20. I'm going to call this Oscillate. Let me show you what we're going to build. Let me restart it. So we just have a little web page here that is getting lighter, gray. And we see a number there. And then we see it getting darker. Okay. So what we're doing here is we are increasing the value of the black up until a certain point, and then we're decreasing it. And here's the value right here. So as that number gets higher, the gray gets lighter. And then you'll see it turn around here in a second. There it goes. Okay, so let's start with this code right here. Sorry, this code right here. Okay, if you could copy that, we'll get started. Okay, so let me show you what you just wrote down. We just have an H1 tag here called data, ID data. We grabbed it here in our JavaScript with a variable called data. And then we said data style, which of course is the CSS, color, which is the font color as opposed to the background color. So this is the font color of the data is red. And then we declared two new variables, one called val, which will be our gray color. And the other one is direction. And let me show you how we're going to use that. So right now, if I was to load that, Oscillate, this is all we got. We got a white web page with some red dots. Okay, so let's build some more JavaScript here. First thing I'm going to do is build a function. It's going to be called Oscillate value. And again, this gray text here, you don't have to copy that. Those are just my notes, so I don't forget. Okay, so we have a function called Oscillate value. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is whatever value is, we're going to increase it or change it. I shouldn't say increase because sometimes we're decreasing. So value will equal value plus direction. And notice our direction is 1. So we're really saying value plus 1. Let me just go over that a second. What we're saying is we kind of have to read this from right to left on the equals on the right side of the equal sign. So what we're really saying is take whatever value was, add this variable called direction, which in our case is 1, and then add that, and then make value equal to that, or assign that to value. So we're adding 1 to value and reassigning that to the value variable. I know that looks confusing if you're thinking in terms of algebra, but that's how we do it in code. Think in terms of reading it from on the right side first. Whatever this is, assign it to value. So then after that, what we need to do is test value. So we need to say if value exceeds 255 or value is less than 0, then we're going to do something. Now, if you remember in lesson 19, we talked about RGB colors ranging from 0 to 255. So what we're saying here is if value equals the maximum 255 or if value is less than the minimum 0, then we need to change something. And what we're going to change is direction. We're going to say direction will equal direction times -1. Now you're looking at that and thinking, why -1? Because whatever direction was before, let's say direction was 1, and if we multiply it times -1, now direction is -1. So we only have two ways to go, 1 or -1. Okay? So you can see if direction was -1 and we multiply it times -1, then the new direction would be 1. And all we're saying with direction is we're adding to value. So we're either adding a +1 or we're adding a -1, which is the same as subtracting. A little bit confusing at first, but stare at it for a while, play with it, and you'll get used to it. Okay, so that's direction. So now we need to, I'm looking at my notes here for a second. Okay, so now we need to change the background. So we need to say document style background color equals, and we're going to use RGB like we did in the last lesson. So we're going to say RGB in quotes, RGB open parentheses in quotes value plus a comma plus value plus another comma plus value plus the ending parentheses. Now, what's different here is when we were doing colors, red, green, and blue, we use different values for red, green, and blue. Last time we used random values. In this case, I'm just using the same value for red, green, and blue. In other words, red, green, and blue always equal the same number. And my monitor just went out. I am hoping that this is still recording. I'm going to keep going. That's a little disconcerting. But anyway, we'll keep going. So when RGB values are exactly the same, in other words, when red equals green equals blue, then we have gray. For instance, if these were all 0, that would be black. If these were all 100, that would just be kind of a darkish gray. And if all these values were 250, that would be white. Okay, so when red, green, and blue are the same value, they're gray. Okay, so we'll do that. We also want to put our value in our data header, HTML. So I'm going to say, what's it called? Data inner text equals value. Okay, we're almost done with this function. The next thing we need to do is we need to call the function again because we're adjusting the value here, then we're testing it, then we're coloring the background, then we're inserting this data, reading it out, but then we need to do it again. If we want to change it, we need to call oscillate value again and just keep calling it again and again and again. So I don't know if you remember set timeout. We're going to call oscillate the value. And I'm going to call it every 50 milliseconds because I want it to change kind of fast. Okay. Let me save that, go up here and reload. And it did not work. You know what? Let's go to view. Well, we're doing a little debugging here. I want to find out, oh, I know why it didn't work without even testing it. Because we never called this function. Got to call the function. Oscillate the value. That's how we call the function. Save that, run it. Oh, background color, cannot set property background color of undefined. Something is undefined here. Document, document body. Save that, run it. There we go. Number's increasing and the gray is increasing in value toward white. When it gets to around 250, when it gets to 255, it'll change. You see how fast that changed? We could slow it down to see the changes, but it just changes so slow, it's crazy. So let's change it slower. All I have to do, so it's 500 milliseconds is basically a half a second. Save that. So every half second now it's changing, but you see, you barely see the black changing. Okay, so another thing you can do here, here's one way to play around with this code. You could call this could be a variable, this speed at which set timeout is called. And we could call it, let's just call it animation speed. Okay. And then up here, we need to declare that. Let animation speed equal, let's call it 20. Let's run that. Now it's running real fast. So as the animation speed is a smaller number, it actually runs faster because it's less milliseconds. Okay. All right, so what I recommend here is playing with different animation speeds, maybe playing with some different colors. Maybe you just want to oscillate one of the RGB values. For instance, I could go in here, set green to 100. I don't need pluses when I do that. Actually, I don't need any quotes. Just get rid of all that. So I could set a fixed green and a fixed blue and just change the red. See that the blue is changing, the green is changing, it's just the red that's changing. Okay, so play with that, have fun with it. And see you next time in lesson 21.